Hello and welcome to my presentation on the International Day of Calm. I want to thank Cecilia Keebler for her efforts to put this together, and I'm really honored to be a part of this. And so I want to just say welcome to Oh, the Stories We Tell. This is a series of 3 questions and a resulting model that I'm going to share with you. And what I want you to know about it is that I think this has the power to dramatically change your life in really simple and lovely ways. I've been practicing this, put it together, and developing it since 2003 and practicing it with my family, with my wife, with colleagues at work, really everywhere. And what it's done for me is absolutely changed how I move in the world. And I'm so grateful for it. It's made me a better husband. It's made me a better dad. It's made me a better friend, business owner, leader, all of that. And it's based on 3 really simple questions, which I want you to understand. This is all about simplicity. There's not much woo-woo, if any, in this. And it's really something that's actionable, easy, and with practice will serve you for the rest of your life. It will serve me for the rest of my life, period. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this with you. So welcome again to Oh, the Stories We Tell. Before we get started, what I'd like to do is have you consider 3 things in your life. And you may want to pause the video on this and give it some additional thought, but here they are. The first question is, think about something that you're stuck on. You just can't seem to get out of your way on it. It just is something that you're plagued by. It could be something as simple as, well, not simple because you can't resolve it at this point, but it could be about money, relationships, work. It could be about how you feel about yourself and where you struggle, but something that really just you're not able to get out of your way on. So that's the first question. The next question is, think about something you just always seem to be grounded and in a centered place with. For me, that is my family, and I'm not always there, but I'm usually there. And when I'm not there, I know it, but I'm with my family and with my wife of 32 years. Life is just good. We've figured it out. We always seem to be in a good place, whether it's with each other or with our kids. It's a place that really works for us. So think about something like that, where you just, it's just something that I don't even need to think about. I'm just really, really good at it. And then the third question is, think of a time when all was right in the world. Nothing could get in your way. Nothing could prevent you from feeling this amazing sense of bliss, of wonder, of joy, whatever words work for you. For me, 2 examples are, one was when I fell in love with my wife. Man, there was nothing that could get in my way of our time together and how I felt about the world. The world was a better place. It's still a pretty good place even now. Even with all the craziness, it's still a pretty good place. The second one, which is really simple and yet just as not just as powerful, but powerful enough, was being in a rental car in LA with a rag top down, playing REM on the stereo really loud, driving down the freeway. Like I was just in a place where everything was good. So think of those places, those 3 things. You may want to stop the video and write those down. I encourage you to do that so that you really have some basis for what we're going to talk about, because what we'll do is we'll go through the 3 questions and then we'll apply those 3 places to the resulting model. And I think it'll help you to really take it to another level in terms of understanding. So with that, welcome again. I am really pleased to be teaching about Oh, the Stories We Tell. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to introduce you to Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist. He was in the Holocaust. and he's the author of Man's Search for Meaning. And the reason I'm giving you these quotes from him is to kind of set like a low watermark in terms of, hey, if this person can find meaning through an experience like being in the Holocaust, where the most atrocious conditions, the most atrocious behavior of the people in the camp towards the people that were staying there without volunteering to be there. I want you to think about this as kind of like, oh my God, if this guy and many people in the camps could find and retain meaning, that you can do it too. It's not a way of saying, hey, if you are feeling like you don't have meaning in your life, well, you should feel really guilty because look at what this guy did. No, it's to say, hey, we all have the capacity to create meaning in our lives. And here's a way to just kind of, as a touch point, to say, oh, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. And so what he said, which I think is very powerful, the first quote is, "We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way." The second quote, "Once the meaning of suffering had been revealed to us, we refused to minimize or alleviate the camp's tortures by ignoring them or harboring false illusions and entertaining artificial optimism. Suffering had become a task on which we did not want to turn our backs. We had realized its hidden opportunities for achievement." And I think what is so critical, especially in this day and age with so much self-help that says, just be positive, do the right thing, talk in the right voice, and everything will be okay. And we try all this stuff, and we're not finding that meaning. We're not finding that purpose, and we're chasing happiness. And so one of the things that's really critical about this model is that we recognize that what we're not trying to do is ignore our circumstances. I want us to be open to the circumstances that we're in, to be curious about what are the things that I can do to change those circumstances, and to understand that there are real hidden opportunities in the adversity of our life. Not something that I want it for you, but we all have had adversity or are experiencing it. And the question becomes, how do I help myself to move from a place of adversity where I feel fear, hopeless, a victim, and move to a place where I can authentically look at what's going on and have a sense of agency that I can do what I need to solve the issue that I'm dealing with. So that is the second quote. The third quote is one that until yesterday I thought was a Viktor Frankl quote, and it turns out it never was said by Viktor Frankl. In the 80s, I believe it was, Stephen Covey, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, mentioned a quote very similar to this, and then at some point he explained that he was in Hawaii in 1969 and read a book that had something along the lines of this paragraph. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And this is really critical because everything that we're going to talk about today is all about creating space between stimulus and response. When I have lots of space between stimulus and response, I am calmer, I'm more curious. I'm more open to what's going on. When I don't have space between stimulus and response, and it's a situation that is not a good one, I tend to react by default. I tend to get angry, to lash out. That's my default. And so what I want to do is help everybody to have more space between stimulus and response. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about this model. And what we'll do is we'll go to the 3 questions. These are questions that I came up with after reading in 2003, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And one of the things that he talked about was how good we are at driving ourselves crazy in certain areas of our lives. We just have areas where we struggle, that first question, areas where I struggle, and we have a tendency to take something that's small and make it so much bigger, to perseverate on it, to make it worse, and we feel bad, and we don't get any resolution, and we really drive ourselves crazy based on the first question, which is, what's the story I'm telling? And when I talk about story, there's 3 really important things to think about. The first is, when I talk about story, I'm talking about my thinking, about what I'm thinking in my head, about myself, or what I'm thinking or visualizing about the world around me, my family, friends, what's going on culturally, politically, whatever the case may be. When I look at it as a story, I immediately take a step back and am able to be more objective about that story, that thinking. When I frame it up as a story, I also recognize that it is inherently editable. I can edit a story. I can change my story, and that is huge. And then the third thing that's really important to recognize is that my stories drive my behavior. And when I change my stories from default stories where I lash out and I'm reactive to being more open and asking, what's the story I'm telling? And then the next 2 questions, I'm creating more space. And that's that calm that we're all looking for, even in the face of adversity. Doesn't mean that I'm happy about what's going on, but I have the ability to change my behavior based on the story that I'm telling. So that's the importance of question 1. Question 2 is, does this story serve me in this moment? In this moment, in this moment, in this moment, does this story serve me? And this is really important because the second question isn't, how are you feeling? Because so often when we're frustrated or we're mad, we get stuck there, right? We just, well, I'm mad and I'm not going to take it anymore. And that does not serve me in this moment. So when I instead ask, does it serve me in this moment? It's a binary question. Gee, is my story driving good behavior? Is it making me feel good? And if it's not, then the next question is there a more authentic story I can tell? And so with those questions, I am armed with what I need, the basics, to really create self-awareness. Gee, this isn't serving me. What is a more authentic story that I can tell myself? This is really, really critical. And when I get to a place where I can recognize, and as I ask each question, I'm creating more space to the point where I'm saying, gee, what is a more authentic story I can tell? That is huge. Moving on, when you think about it, the question of does this serve me in the moment, question 2, is binary. And so if you think about it from that standpoint, you either have a no, it's not answer, which I say is above this line that I've created, or yes, it is. And so it becomes very clear very quickly that being above that line isn't going to serve me. And what I really want to do is spend a whole lot more time below the line in stories that serve me, that drive good behavior, that have me calmer and feeling better about my place in the world. So that line is really critical in this model, and this is the beginning of the model. So the next thing that we look at is there are basically three versions of myself. If I say that if the story isn't serving me and it's above that line, I'm in my lesser or my little me self. And so often when I talk about this to people, they get this sheepish grin on their face like, oh, I know what it means to be in little me land. And we all know when we're up there, it's just something we're really clear about. And then on the other side of the line, below the line, is what I call authentic me. It's where I still may be frustrated or I can be happy. I still have a range of emotion, but I know that I have agency. I know that I'm going to solve whatever the issue is. I'm more open to what's going on, and I'm calmer, more centered, and more grounded about it. So that is the beginning of the model. And then the third thing that we do is we add an additional line, and we add what I call enlightened me. And enlightened me is where we're in flow. Enlightened me is when everything is right with the world, falling in love, seeing a baby, driving to good music with a rag top down on the freeway in LA, when everything's right in the world. The other places that it really applies are, a lot of people talk about flow, and flow happens in this area. So flow, examples of flow are runner's high, where a marathon runner is struggling, and all of a sudden they go from a place where they are battling, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this, I'm never going to make it, and all of a sudden they come down here and they're able to run and be in a place where they feel good and feel like they could run forever. So those are the three me's, and I will go through more of this, but obviously the deal is I want to be in a place where I am more likely to be in authentic me land than lesser me land or little me land, and that I recognize when I'm up in little me land that my goal is to be in authentic me land. What is important to point out, just like sleeping, you can't get to enlightened me land by trying. Enlightened me land is something that comes with practice, where I find that I just recognize these little moments of grace, these little moments of joy, these feelings of everything being right with the world. And the thing is, I can't get to enlightened me land from little me land. In other words, I can't go from here down to here into enlightened me land in one fell swoop. But what I can do is I can spend more time here, and as a result, I'm more likely to go down further into this enlightened place. And so what's important to recognize is that those are kind of three states, general states of being. I'm in little me land. I'm not authentic to who I am. I'm in authentic me land, where I feel like I'm centered and grounded, and I can be calm and have agency in my life. And then there's enlightened me, and this is a place where I kind of get to almost by accident. But what I start to recognize is all the things that I've passed by as enlightened moments because I was so stuck up in little me land that I didn't even pay. Oh, that doesn't matter. So now when I'm driving on the road, on a road trip, and my wife puts her hand in mine, or there's just something that's lovely about it, and I enjoy it. And it's because I've spent more time in authentic me land, and so I'm way more open to being enlightened. Those are the three me's, and they are the three ways of being. And the next part of the model then is all about recognizing that when I'm in this place, I still have emotion that I need to deal with. So what I do is I put positive emotion on the right side, and I put negative emotion on the left side. And what you begin to recognize very quickly is that when you're above the line, there is a much greater level of a range of emotion, from really negative over here to really positive over here, because I can get to rage here, or I can get to being manic, where I can do anything. And yet it's not authentic to who I am. And when we come below the line, there's less of a range of emotion, but what it is it's far less, the strength of it is much, much reduced. So down here, I might be frustrated, and I might just be kind of happy and content over here when I'm below this line. And so what is important to kind of understand is that, yes, we deal with emotion very basically, but again, going to that second question, is this serving me? Is this story serving me in this moment? I'm not asking about emotion. It's critical because it allows me to not get stuck where I am emotionally. It gives me the agency to be able to change the story I'm telling, and as a result, the response. And now all of a sudden, I'm serving myself in ways that really are much, much better for me. So let's finish out the model. And basically what happens is we put negative emotion on the left, as I mentioned, we put positive emotion on the right, and kind of neutral emotion in the middle. Now, what we haven't talked about, and what we should talk about now, is that enlightened me place. And so with enlightened me, this is what I like to call this little light of mine. It's that gospel song, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And when we are talking about that place, what we're doing is we're talking about down here. Now you'll notice this light goes above this line, and really what this line is all about is above the line, I have language that I'm using. When I go below that line, I am in this place where I've driven my car for 30 minutes and all of a sudden come to, and it's shocking in the moment that I recognize that I've been there. Oh my God. But if you take the moment before that and that time that you were driving the car, not thinking about anything, that's below the line where we're not using language. And so that's that little light of mine is really where we shine, where joy lives, where love lives, where we feel just right with the world, regardless of what's going on. And from that standpoint, then the other thing to look at is, whether you're spiritual, whether you're religious, we look at this area outside of the triangle, at the bottom of the triangle there, as being whatever works for you. You can call it God, spirit, infinite intelligence, the universe, whatever works for you is fine from my standpoint. Or if you say, you know what, I don't believe any of that stuff, that's fine too. You can still recognize that there is this place within you where you just shine. And that is the model overall and how it works. And so what happens is, what we recognize, really quickly is that what I want to do is spend less time up here and further south. I'm not ever suggesting that you don't go into Little Me Land. Little Me Land is a fact of life, but what's not a fact is how much I go there and how high I am up in the model. If I can spend less time lower down, closer to the line in Little Me Land, that's a whole lot better place than being up here. And so we'll talk about the kinds of things that we can do to practice our way into a place where we're more likely to be lower in the model. And that really is overall the focus, is that what I want to do is I want to move all my thinking as much as I can, as often as I can, down into the lower part of the model. And when I recognize that I have the power and I have the agency to do this, I am in a whole different place in how I perceive my life. And when you think about it, really what's happening when I'm above the line, I am either here with a cloud over me, or I'm here with rose shades, rose-colored glasses, but neither of those places serve me. And so what I'm really trying to do is get to a place where I have clear glasses on the world that I inhabit, both in my mind and in how I work in the world. So I'm really trying to put on a clear pair of glasses, and this is so powerful from the standpoint of giving me that ability to put on glasses where I have a much broader perspective below the line. I'm more curious. I really feel like I'm looking at the whole picture. When I'm above the line, I tend to be very much fear-based. I feel like a victim. I feel hopeless. And these are the places where that first question is, where are you with a certain thing that you just don't seem to be able to solve? And so understanding that I have the ability to go up in, to take my thinking, my stories, and move them south, that really serves me in a huge way in terms of clarifying and being more open to what's going on around me. This allows me to listen to my wife while she's going off about something that I did and not react in kind and not get all mad. It allows me to say to my child, dude, what are you doing? That's not serving you right now. Let's figure out what we can do to have a better approach or deal with this situation better. So when I think about this model as a way that it's prescriptive, that I know that I want to be south in the model, then the other thing that happens is when I'm down here, people join me. When I'm living in a more authentic place more of the time, people want to be with me. When we look at corporate management and the horror story of corporate management, especially in the United States, you think about the person, the corporate manager or the CEO who behaves badly, and he is stuck in Little Me Land. Up here, he's micromanaging, he's telling you that everything's going to be great, and he's dragging his people up above the line into places where they think, oh, this is going to be great, but the minute that it's not great, they're off to the negative side. That is exactly what we're trying to solve in our lives, and not just from a corporate standpoint, but also from the standpoint of every aspect of my life. And so when I am down in this place, because I'm not judgmental, judgment happens above the line, because I'm not in fear and I'm open, when I'm in this area, people want to come down. Doesn't happen overnight, right? We have to show that we actually are living this on a regular basis. When I used to have employees, I knew that it was going to take time for people to get to a point where they could trust me, because they have, culturally, we have so many bad stories about what management and leadership is about, or how it presents itself in the United States. And so understanding that some people are going to be really nervous and say, oh, I can't be honest with my boss, but I stay down here and say, come this way, come this way. Gradually they do. It takes time. And because I understand that, and because I'm understanding of what's going on with people in general, I get to be in a place where I'm attracting them to a much better place that's more authentic for them as well. And it may be only in the aspect of their work or how my kids deal with dad and mom, that sort of thing. But I'm helping people to really understand what they have the ability to do in terms of living below that line. And the beauty of it is, I don't need to tell anybody about this. When I start behaving the way that this model encourages me to behave, by asking these questions, by being more authentic, I am just such a different person to deal with. I'm open, I'm relaxed, I'm calm, I'm centered, I'm grounded, and people gravitate to that. There's such a hunger for that. And yet think about it as parents. If you're a parent, think about all the times where you're embarrassed by your child's behavior. You're out in public, the kid goes running off and he gets under somebody's feet. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. When we live that way, it's in fear of how we're perceived by the person that my kid just got under their feet on, that sort of thing. And when I instead am below that line as a father, I'm like, hey, bud, come on, let's figure this out. Hey, sorry about that. Light and easy. It's a different place. And it is a place where we all are striving to be, whether we recognize it or not. And so when I have the benefit of this model, my behavior changes because my stories have changed. They're now serving me in the moment. They're authentic to who I am. And I am creating a place where people want to be. And that is so huge. And when I'm figured that out, I'm happier up here. I'm happier in my world. It's just a good thing. So the question becomes, why is it so hard to do this? Why can't I stop driving myself crazy? And why do I live in little me land in certain areas of my life? And what can I do about it? So with that, I want to bring to you the last piece of the model. And what that is this idea of being in a place where we recognize that there is this narrator that's always telling us a story. There's a part of us that's constantly narrating our existence on the planet. It's taking all the input and putting a story around it that makes sense. But what happens is that there's this other part of us that I like to call the protector with a capital P, and that part of us is hardwired into every single person on the planet with a very few exceptions. It's where fight, flight, or freeze response lives. It's our amygdala. It's the part of us that's always working to keep us safe. And that protector, now that it's not dealing with lions and tigers and bears, still is looking for something to do. And so what happens is when I'm above the line and I have that protector working, he is all about being fear-based. He, she, it, they, whatever you prefer to call it, that protector is all about keeping you safe, and the place that safety perspective comes from is this sense of underlying fear. And so we typically recognize what I like to call the protector is more often referred to as the ego. In The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body, which just makes my skin want to crawl, and I don't ever want to call it that. People say, oh, the ego, it's the enemy. If I could just destroy the ego, everything would be okay. And what's fascinating about that is that story, if I could just destroy the ego, everything would be okay, is coming from right here. And I think of it, I hope you won't be offended by this analogy, but I think of the protector as the kid in high school who's goth, has the black clothes, the makeup, and they're kind of like, see me, but don't see me. You can see me and you can tell that I'm different, but let's not talk about it. And when you think about it, the protector is very much that way. He doesn't want to be seen. He's the part of you that wants to put things away and not deal with them, even though they're still there, and he keeps bringing them up. He's the part of us that takes something that's a very simple problem and creates a mountain from that molehill. So what do we do about this guy? And the answer to the question, from my humble perspective, is we take the protector and we treat him the same way that in this day and age, well, during the pandemic and that sort of thing, where flights are being canceled left and right, and these poor counter agents in the airport have one person after another marching up to them. They're going to tell them what's going on and how crappy their airlines, and they're never going to fly. I can't believe this. And they go off. And what does the counter agent do the whole time that person is going off? They're waiting for that balloon to deflate down from this to this to this to this, and they might get there, the person that's complaining about having their flight canceled. And when all of the air is out of that balloon, they tend to get this sheepish little grin on their face, like, oh my God, did I just say all of that stuff to you? I don't even know you. I'm a little embarrassed. And that is when the counter agent says, Mr. Smith, let's see what we can do for you. I'm really sorry for what's going on and how frustrating this must be. So what you've got is, you've got an angry customer, say here, but the whole time the counter agent is down here, trying to stay centered, trying to stay focused, and not doing the worst thing that could possibly happen, which is come up here, then the customer goes up, I go up, and now what we're in is we're both in a place where we're so angry with each other that nobody's going to walk away happy. And so what I do instead is I am at this place where I'm staying down here and helping this person to come down by being curious, by being open, by apologizing for the experience they're having. This is that whole idea of when I stay in this place down here, people want to come down and join me. Now, with that said, the other side to that is when we don't have a whole lot of self-awareness and we don't have the benefit of understanding this model, and somebody is up here, I have a tendency to want to go join them up there. Little me's, the protectors, love to join each other. And really, you're going to tell me? Well, I'll tell you. And you think about, whether it's with kids, whether it's an employee or a boss or your partner, when we start going up that way, there's no space between stimulus and response, and we're just going further north in the model, and it does not serve us. And then you have kids that feel like they're not heard. You have spouses that, couples that end up breaking up and getting divorced. It's because even though they started down here when they fell in love, gradually some of the stories that they incorporated into their lives started showing up. And now what I'm doing is I'm going above the line, and this is where my marriage is living. And or we pretend everything's going to be great, and the minute that it's not, off to the negative side we go. And so what's so critical about this is that when you have the benefit of this model, you recognize that you have the ability, when I stay south of the line, does this serve me line, in authentic me land, I can hear what my spouse is saying. I can be curious about what my child is trying to say and find out what I can do to help them to come down from a situation where they're just furious with me or the world or whatever the case may be. But I cannot do that above the line. If my kid's here or my spouse is there, I can't solve that from that place. I can't solve it above the line. I need to stay down here and help people to move this way. So that is how the protector works. And what's really important then is to recognize that what I need to do, in essence, is look at that aspect of my personality, have a conversation with it about what's going on. Let it get on the soapbox. Big balloon, let all that air out. Let it, and the way that we do that is we get more attuned to listening to what's going on in our head, especially when this comes up mostly when we're on the negative side of the model. We're angry, we're rageful. And what we do is we say to that part of ourselves, to the protector, what's going on, and let it vent. And that can be in a couple of ways. It can be just listening to what's going on in my head. Another fabulous way is to write either with a stylus on a tablet or pen to paper, hopefully in longhand, because it allows that flow to happen more easily. And let that protector go off, whether it's about the protector judging you about who you are, or the protector judging my kids, my spouse, my boss, whatever the case may be. When I give that protector a voice, just like the angry passenger at the airline who's just had their flight canceled, when I give that protector a voice and let that balloon deflate, I automatically am moving to a place that serves me. And remember, this place is a really crappy place. This is a much better place, and I don't have to get below the line to get to a place that serves me. But what's going on is there's an aspect of me that's down here and saying, come this way. It's okay. And by just listening to it and giving the protector a voice that we're not fighting against, it's difficult to kind of put into perspective, but typically what the protector is doing is speaking in circles. This is a problem, but I don't want to look at it. We should put it away. I should be really resistant to looking at it, but it's still there, and it's still there, and it's still there, and it's growing, even though the protector's pushing it away. And so when we have this ability to look at ourselves as the narrator talking to the protector and helping the protector to come down, we partner with that protector so that what that piece of us does is feels heard, and what our goal is to help them to step down off of the soapbox, to take off the police cap and just relax a little bit. And the more that we practice that through writing, meditation is a great way to do that. When we do things that way, where we're aware of that aspect of our personality and we give them the voice that they need. We hear what they have to say. And then what we do is solve it from down here, or, in this area. We are now taking the adversity of up here and moving it into something authentic that serves us. And that is just through practice. If you walk away with nothing else and this model just seems like, I don't know, whatever, if the one thing you do is you say, I'm going to make my life a practice. I'm going to practice to be a better version of myself. That's what this is all about. It doesn't happen overnight, no quick fixes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to enjoy the journey a whole lot more. And I'm going to stop saying to myself, I'll be happy when everything is the way that I want it to be, when everybody behaves the way they should be, when it's us that are behaving in ways that don't serve us, and we're pushing away the happiness, the calmness, and the joy of what we want to accomplish. And so from that standpoint, when I recognize that I can be down here more often through practice, I'm in a place where I am so much happier. The people that I deal with are happier, and they feel more fulfilled. They feel happier because down here there is meaning. There is purpose. And when I have those things, happiness is just what follows from it. So that is the model in a nutshell. And I just want to very briefly talk about some practices that you can begin to incorporate. One of the things that's important about this model is that it's not a belief system. It's not a religion or spirituality. I mean, you can look at, the part of the model down here and say, well, yeah, there's some spirituality and that sort of thing. Or you don't believe in it and there's not, and that's completely fine from my perspective. But what I recognize is that because this isn't a belief system, it's not a religion, it's not spirituality, so to speak, I can look at any practice, I can look at anything and say, gee, does that serve me? Or is this something that resonates with me in terms of what I want to do in terms of practicing in my life to be a better version of myself? So a few practices that I think are really worthwhile for you to think about. Obviously, practice the questions. What's the story I'm telling? Is it serving me in this moment? And is there a more authentic story I can tell? With enough practice, we get to a point where we kind of just, ends up being one thing. Oh my God, I'm not being authentic. What do I need to do to be more authentic? So that's the first thing, is to practice those questions until they become second nature. The second thing to do is to think about, as you're going through your days, especially when you're struggling with something, is where are you in that model? And is it serving you? If I know that I'm up north in the model, I know what I need to do. I need to come up with practices that are going to serve me to move south, or begin to move me south of the line where I'm moving back into an authentic place. So really recognizing that what I want to do is to be in a place where I'm more authentic. Then another practice that I think is really worthwhile is looking at taking the stories that didn't serve you, that don't serve you, and authenticizing them. So one of the things that's really, really important to recognize, I may have had a crappy upbringing, I may have been bullied at school, and what I can do is take every one of those stories that the protector has got all this baggage that he's carrying, all the crappy stories, those are owned by the protector. if what I can do is help the protector to take those stories and bring them down below the line in terms of what can I take of being bullied and say, because I was bullied, I now recognize that I'm in a better place and I know how to handle tough situations. I know what I can do in order to be more effective, and I know from those experiences who I don't want to be. That's authenticizing a story. And that can be done with any story. It doesn't matter how awful it was. And this is one of the reasons I go back to and start with Viktor Frankl and his experience in the concentration camps. Because in the face of the worst behavior in the world, he was able to retain meaning. And what he did is figured out ways to take those stories of just brutal things and figure out how, from his perspective, to make them authentically serve him. That he could recognize the good and the bad and the ugly and still be able to say, with the good and the bad, or the bad and the ugly, these are the things that I took away that from those behaviors that I no longer want to deal with. And this is how I do that. I create stories. And what I'm not doing, and this is really important, is I'm not putting lipstick on the pig and saying, oh, it wasn't that bad. That is not what I'm saying. We look at that situation, whatever the situation you're struggling with, and we take it and just depower it. We don't give it the ability. And what happens is, because we deal with it in a way where the protector says, okay, you've got this, and you've reframed it into a story that serves you, I can move forward and I don't need to carry that baggage anymore. It's huge. And when you think about it, when I can do that, I'm in such a better place. Now, with that said, what's really important to talk about is there are things that are kind of buried deep in our subconscious that we carry and that require extra help. And whether that is through therapy, through medication, hopefully a combination of the two, through coaching, whatever you need, what I want you to recognize is that when you have those really tough problems, you recognize that, I'm not able to do this on my own and I need help. I need to enlist my wife. I need to talk to my kids about what's going on, that I'm struggling with their behavior, and see if we can't figure it out together. But the point being is sometimes these things are so entrenched in our subconscious that we need extra help, and that's okay. One of the things that is so crucial about this model is that when I recognize that I have this access to what I call infinite intelligence, that I have all the answers within me. Probably the biggest thing that I recognize about who I am is that I do have that little light of mine, and that I do have all the answers. The answer may be go get help, and that's okay, right? But when I recognize that I have access to all the answers that I need, somewhere deep within me, that little light of mine, when I am spending more time down here, I'm able to get down here much more often and to be able to recognize what some of those answers are that I need to help myself with changing stories that I'm just stuck in. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all suffer with that. One of the things that's just fascinating about the protector is the protector doesn't want anybody to see what is going on behind the curtain. He wants to keep that away. He wants to make it something that I'll just handle it by putting it away. We won't talk about it. And when you recognize that you have the ability to look at those things in a way that serves you, the protector can step down and say, okay, you can take this, turn it into a story that recognizes exactly what the issues were, but how I've been able to benefit as a result. I think about, I love to watch auditions on America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, those types of things. And here are these kids that come out. And one of the things that they talk about is how music has saved them from the adversity of being bullied. Major theme. And so, the question is, how do I do that for myself? And that's recognizing that I do have the answers to do that and that I can do those things on my own. The next few things I want to talk about are being lighter, being more humorous, having a lighter approach to life. And when we are open to what's going on, the things I don't like, but it's just the way it is, and the best thing that I can do is be in a place where it serves me, being lighter in our life is one of those ways. I don't like what's going on with the war. It really makes me sad, and I can't be happy and joyful about it, and that wouldn't be appropriate. But I know that there are only certain things that I can do. And so when we take the weight of the world off of the protector's shoulders and say, here are the things that I'm going to do about the things that concern me, and this is what I can do, that is enough. I had a conversation with a woman who's a missionary, I think in Nigeria. And one of the things she talked about is, there's so many things that we're trying to solve, and so many people get burnt out because they haven't solved that big problem. And my answer to her was, Shiloh, think about all the little changes that you've made in the people's lives that you're trying to help. And yeah, it may not have solved the big problem, but you've helped to move people in a direction that serves them. And she was like, oh my God, that stuff passes me right by. And so when I'm lighter about my life, I'm also way more receptive to the things that I can do to be in a better place for myself and then for the people around me. And I stop trying to it's not that I don't worry about them, but I stop holding my happiness away from myself until something happens that I want in order, the war's over, or the pandemic's over, whatever the case may be. When I decide that what I'm going to do is I'm going to be in a lighter place, I'm going to serve the people that I can, and especially myself, because when I'm serving myself, I'm way more likely to be able to serve others. I want to encourage everybody to do that. Be lighter. Another thing to keep in mind is that you want to watch your language. One of the things that really struck me when my boy was born, it's like, oh my God, this baby is so amazing. You're just, for me, the best thing ever. And what I realized, well, my kid's the best. My kid's the best. And so one of the things that I started doing is saying, for me, you are the best for me. Because then it doesn't invalidate the rest of the world and all the other parents in the world. And it makes it clear that I'm not trying to be better or worse than anybody, and I'm not thinking in black or white. I'm just, for me in this moment, you are the best for me, and I love and adore you, and that is a great place to be. Finally, and I think we'll wrap it up with this, is that one of the things that I don't want you to do is go down the positive thinking road. We talked about this a little bit, but go to a place where you're thinking authentically. You think about what you'd like things to be like, but you're not pretending that all the bad stuff doesn't exist. When I look at the tough stuff right in the eye, lightly and easily, I'm able to be in a place where I am now thinking authentically instead of positively, because when I'm trying to be a positive thinker, that's above the line. That's little me land. That's the angel on your shoulder who's just trying to make everything right. Well, the devil, the little protector, is over on the other shoulder telling you that it's all garbage. When I can get down below that line and authentically look at what's going on, what didn't serve me, what did serve me, how your behavior as my partner or as my child or my boss or employee behaved, when I can look at those things authentically, my world changes. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up with just a few last things. My name's Chris Templeton. I am the founder of Oh, the Stories We Tell, and I love teaching this. I love working with people on their stories and how they can get better and practice and put this model into perspective. The one thing that you could do for me would be go to YouTube and then do a search for Oh, the Stories We Tell. And what'll come up is on the top of the search is this little thought bubble. And you can go to that channel and subscribe to it. I would really appreciate it. And in return, you can check out the Honesty Project playlist, which is a list about 14 videos that I told a friend of mine about the model about 8 or 9 years ago. And she came to me right before the pandemic and said, hey, you know, I had a bit of a rough upbringing. I've always kind of struggled through life. And I'd love to just share an issue that I've had and then apply it to the model. So Melody and I talk about what a specific issue. It could be an annoying coworker, how to deal with my boss, my relationships, and we just talk those things through. And so you subscribe to my channel because what I want is to get that vanity URL, youtube.com/Oh, the Stories We Tell, which I don't have until I think it's 100 subscribers. And you get that playlist, and I think you'll love it. Most of the videos are 20 to 30 minutes long, and they're complete. Each one is a full, from start to finish, going through a specific situation, and they're lovely. So I encourage you to do that. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Oh, the Stories We Tell, and you can find my website at ohthestorieswetell.com. I love working with people. I am willing to meet with you for a fee that we'll work on together to make sure that it's appropriate for you and work through any issues that you have. Not saying we're going to have the answer by the end of the session, but we're certainly going to be moving in the right direction. I would love to have your feedback. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. You can contact me through Facebook or through my website, which has my phone number, texting, that sort of thing. And I look forward to hearing your stories of living a more authentic, more calm life. Thanks again for being here, and I sure appreciate it. Take care.